Morena koutou. Welcome to day one of the Freedom Camping hearing of submissions. I'm Georgia Pringle, the Democracy Services Advisor who's supporting the hearing today. Just to note that the hearing is being recorded and will be available on the QLDC website this afternoon. Our first order of business is to elect for the panel to elect a chair. So I'd like to invite you to do so now. We'll send a mover and a seconder, please.
I'm happy to move Councillor Bartlett. Thank you.
And I'm happy to second that.
Perfect. So let's move Councillor Bartlett. So I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, welcome everyone up to this hearing on our draft Freedom Camping Bylaw for 2025. First order is apologies. We've got no apologies today. Move there. Declarations of conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflicts? No. No. I don't think either. Good. We have to confirm the agenda. The resolution is that the agenda be confirmed without addition or alteration. The only thing we are slightly altering, I guess, is bringing forward one of the resolutions, the one on accepting late submissions, which we'll get to in a minute. So we'll move with that minor alteration. Yeah, all in favour? Aye. Good. So then that brings us to that resolution, and we'll bring forward the item that relates to accepting late submissions so that we can consider them. So we'll move to agree to accept the late submissions for consideration. You have a second for that? Thank you, Lisa. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Right. So that brings us to the business of the day, which is the Freedom Camping Bylaw, and we've got the reporting officer summary. We've got Kerry Williams, Luke Places online, Amy Galloway, and Marie Day in the room. So you're invited to speak to the report, and we may ask questions, but we may also reserve our questions for the hearings and begin our deliberations.
Given the timing, officers are proposing to provide a report summary at this stage. We have a deliberation session to do that. As you know, our recommendations are in the hearing report, and as well as a summary of the submissions. If you have any preliminary questions before we start at 9:05, in order to keep the time, happy to respond to those. Otherwise, we'll take more time on Thursday and walk you through the report.
Sounds good. Any preliminary questions at this stage on all that reading?
No, just acknowledging that questions drop sheet publicly that you've provided us with. I've already entered a couple of sort of generic overview background questions, and yeah, I'll add my more specific ones to it as we go through. My generic ones are around the practicality of our enforcement, our facility investment, our legal tests and risks. They're already in the sheet. Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Well, we actually got a couple of minutes ahead of time, but we've got our first presenter, Ellen Brent, online. So everyone today we've got 5-minute slots to speak, and we'll be fairly strict on that. We've got quite a lot to get through today and tomorrow. So we'll just give you a warning at some point just before your 5 minutes is up. If there's any time left after you've made your presentation, there'll potentially be some time for questions from the panel. If you use the whole 5 minutes, there won't be. But yeah, first up on the list today is Ellen. So welcome, Ellen, and you've got 5 minutes.
Kia ora, everyone, and thanks very much for having me. Sorry I couldn't come over the hill. My name's Alan Brent. I'm a Wanaka resident and ratepayer, and professionally I'm a public lawyer. So, you know, like a judicial review expert for my sins. You have to forgive me, I haven't read everything that you've just referred to, and my own submission might have been a bit of a dog's breakfast. I did it quite late at night through the form. So, look, I'll get into it. It seems to me that as a matter of policy, the QLDC bylaw of a couple of years ago was where the council, and I guess by proxy the community, wanted to land in terms of the balance of where freedom camping should be. And as we all know, you ran into some highly technical legal problems. Now, my read of that decision was that it was about as conservative as it could have been. That it might have been argued differently and appealed, but that's water under the bridge. So here we are now, and I think what that situation creates is one where today my prediction would be that you're going to hear from a large number of submitters who are going to say things to you like, camping here or camping there will ruin the amenity of the area rather than of the site, and things of that nature. And you're going to have to tell them, sorry guys, the conservative view is that we can't hear that, or at least you'll hear them politely, and then your legal team will tell you, sorry, we can't take that into account. And so I think where all this goes is that to create a viable bylaw that will be robust to, highly robust to challenge, you're going to have to create something that disappoints the community's expectations. And I think you're probably all aware of that. So I just kind of wanted to start the day with that. I was quite glad to get the first slot, actually. And so that really leads to a question of whether you might pass no bylaw at all and rely on the general law. There's obviously protection in the Summary Offences Act for things like, urinating or defecating even in public. And then there's, I believe, similar stuff to do with blocking access to public ways. Now, the Summary Offences Act, obviously enforced by the police, so not you guys. They're a lot better resource, perhaps, around enforcement, because I think that'll be a big issue for you. But of course, it's not under your control. But so I'd just encourage everybody to think about that in your deliberations, whether you might be better with no bylaw at all, and focusing your efforts on heading up to Wellington, seeing if you can get the tests widened out. So that said, I'll just use the remaining time to comment on 3 sites over the hill here. These are areas near my house and stuff that I'm familiar with. One is Allenby Park, underneath Mount Iron. Now, I don't know who's familiar with it, but it's a little site, and it's surrounded by very tall manuka hedges, and it's on the margins of the Mount Iron Reserve. Now, that reserve has been closed over the past 2 summers for fire risk, and I'm actually quite critical of that policy. I don't think it's a reasonably made policy, but this surely, cooking, camping next to tall manuka hedges on the margins of this reserve is surely a genuine ignition risk. And I think for that reason alone, that site is not appropriate for freedom camping. A second is Camp Hill Road Reserve. It's very similar. Camp Hill Road has little parks on either side of the road. Now, the proposed Freedom Camping Reserve is on one side. On the other is a site next to the Wave, and that's actually got really severe sort of fire risk issues, and I believe restrictions, insurance issues, all sorts. That site would also block access to the cyclists, the walkers, and the kayakers who use those sites for those reasons. The final site is the Beacon Point Road car park. Now, this, I'm not sure about the detail, but this is actually legal road land, and it's in an urban setting. So I'm not sure if that means it shouldn't be under consideration at all. But it too has those similar issues of twin issues, really, of fire risk and access to walking tracks.
Thanks.
Sorry, what was that?
Can you just wrap up now, thanks?
Yeah, sure. So that was actually all I had to say. So thanks for your time, and good luck with your deliberations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good
Sorry,
day.
no question, sorry.
Thanks, Alan, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Okay. Right, so next on the list is Rosie Hill. Rosie here.
Good morning. Hello,
Someone.
listeners. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi there. So I've got 5 minutes this morning to speak to two submissions, one of which is Orange Lakes and the other is Waterfall Park. So both submitters have similar kind of issues, but quite different sort of circumstances. They're both concerned in respect of the restricted freedom camping that will be allowed on rural roads identified. So one of the rural roads relating to Orange Lakes is called Meads Road. And so that actually runs right through Hunter Valley Station, and Orange Lakes is the pastoral lessee of that station. Interestingly, part of Meads Road actually also runs right through the homestead building and a number of the associated residential accommodation and farm buildings on that property. So it's Meads Road is approximately half an hour from Hawea and about 15 minutes of Wanaka, from Wanaka, sorry. And as set out in the Orange Lakes submission, a number of the concerns relate to, I guess, the practicalities of allowing restricted freedom camping on that road in such a inherently remote location. So the farming operations regularly use Meads Road to move stock along the farm and between paddocks. And there's concern that camping in these locations or within sort of 5 meters of the edge of the road hard seal would potentially create a health and safety risk in terms of stock movements, or otherwise kind of restrict those lawful farming operations from continuing. Sections of Meads Road are unfenced, and again, this presents a health and safety risk in terms of potential sort of movement into private land, although I accept what's just been said in respect of alternative regulation of that aspect. And furthermore, the other point noted in the submission was that, there are ample alternative locations, I guess, close by, other than using Meads Road. And finally, similar to the submission you've just heard as well, there is quite a significant fire risk as well. So this is quite an isolated location, and if a fire were to occur, it could obviously spread very quickly through farmland adjacent to Meads Road, especially in dry summer or sort of shoulder season conditions. And given its remote location, there's also concerns not just about that fire risk, but also about the enforceability of ensuring that those restricted camping requirements for rural roads are adhered to. So that includes, self-contained vehicles, parking a minimum of 5 meters from the edge of the road, yet remaining on a formed gravel surface, and parking for 2 nights only, and keeping personal items within 2 meters of a vehicle, etc. So that's the Orange Lakes kind of context, which is quite unique, I think. And then the second submission is Waterfall Park. So their concerns are mostly in respect of Waterfall Park Road, which runs off Arrowtown Lake Hayes Road and into Waterfall Park and past the Airburn domain. So some similar themes of concern in respect of the inability to have effective enforcement or oversight of those areas, the consequential impact on landowners to have to try and take an enforcement role or lobby effectively to create that same enforcement, and the potential for consequential antisocial behaviour, health and safety issues, and fire risk. So those are the two submissions.
Very good, thank you. We've got a few seconds left. So any questions? No?
No, I'm good.
No, that's very good. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Have a good day.
Should say, well, we've got 10 seconds or so. I failed to introduce the other two panel members. For the Cody Tucker and Councillor Lisa Guy. We've got representation from each ward here today. Okay, so next one on the list is Malcolm Woods, who's presenting online. I mean, in person.
You note, Mr. Chairman, that I had been allocated 10 minutes for my speech. I applied for that and it came through on the last agenda, so I prepared a 10-minute speech. Is that granted?
No, we've only got 5 minutes.
Well, if you'll be, okay, it came through that I had 10.
No.
I applied for it, want me to get the email out and
We've only
got
got,
more delay or what?
no, we've only got the 5, so, and that's all that's allowed for everybody, so.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, that is a disappointment. Okay, so my name is Malcolm Papworth. I've been a ratepayer for 25 years and I live in Wanaka. And I strongly oppose bylaw in its current form as it imposes an unnecessary sweeping ban on freedom camping across vast portions of the district. Combining this valued activity, which I participate in, to just 158 designated freedom sites is an approach that fundamentally conflicts the spirit and letter of the Queenstown Lakes District Council's guiding documents, most notably Travel to Thriving Future, a Regenerative Tourism Plan 2022, and the Responsible Camping Strategy 2024. Both of these last two strategies express a clear commitment to evidence-based decision-making and encourage the welcoming of responsible campers who contribute to the social and economic vitality of our region. And the recent data and feedback from the 230 submitters who opposition was made on the basis that the draft bylaw applied overly restrictive conditions, highlighted the overly rigid regulation could deter the very visitors who supports our local businesses, fosters cultural exchange and sustains our communities. By placing excessive restrictions without clear input from experienced external bodies such as the New Zealand Motor Caravan Association and data-driven rationale, the bylaw undermines the goals of regeneration and partnership it purports to advance. I have three concerns: the certification requirements. The draft bylaw specifies the necessity for vehicles to possess a valid self-containment certificate. However, clarity is needed for the benefit of both local ratepayers and visiting campers, many of whom may not be familiar with technical standards such as NS 54652001, which Councillor Bartlett may understand from his engineering background. To ensure equitable understanding and compliance, I suggest the bylaw directly makes reference to the new Green Warrant Self-Certification Certificate, as has been implemented by the Kaikoura District Council. By clearly defining the certification requirements and making related information accessible, Council can facilitate responsible camping while supporting both regulatory goals and visitor engagement. This solution-orientated approach enhances transparency and assists all stakeholders in meeting the intended standards. Secondly, I believe you need to focus on signage at designated areas. To address communication challenges, I propose the implementation of clear, informative signage in at least 3 foreign languages at all 158 designated freedom camping sites. Leveraging Councillor Tucker's expertise from his local signage projects, this task could rapidly enhance visitor understanding and compliance. I'm showing up a photo of the sign that's at the Red Bridge Reserve, and this sign was compiled by New Zealand Responsible Camping and the QLDC. This reserve is not part of the designated sites because it's reserved. But it implies a standard that QLDC need to adopt. And the inclusion of QR codes as shown in this photograph would enable easy access to multilingual information, ensuring important rules and guidelines are accessible to all. Thirdly, I don't feel we've got sufficient time, which is going on, got allocated 10 minutes in an email and now it's been cut down to 5, to review this bylaw adequately before the election. It's important to note that the time frame provided by the council for reviewing submissions may not allocate for adequate evidence-based deliberation. All three we've got a situation where the council, after these deliberations, three panel people have 2 to 3 hours on Thursday to consider 1,570 pages of written submissions, 60 to 75-minute verbal submissions alongside a 99-page QLDC policy advisory report and a 198-page Tonkin Taylor report, all presumably read by you over the last 6 days. Given the sheer volume and complexity of these materials, this limited time frame, I do not believe will provide a sufficient basis for evaluating all perspectives and the full breadth of evidence needed to make a well-informed decision. Now, recognising that the QLDC managed the 2024-2025 summer without a freedom camping bylaw, I encourage the panel to recommend extending the bylaw review period beyond the November local elections. By doing so, council can engage more deeply with the community and draw on local insights to develop practical, inclusive solutions, like putting up signage at the proposed 158 designated freedom camping sites before Christmas. This community-focused, solution-driven approach should prioritise expanding and improving designated camping spaces, equipping them with clear, multilingual signage and addressing the diverse needs of both residents and visitors. Such thoughtful measures will foster sustainable tourism and strengthen the district's reputation
Wrap up there now, thanks.
and all ratepayers for the long term.
Very good. Thank you for compressing that down from 10 minutes to 5. Sorry for the confusion about that.
Well, next time I'll bring the email, but that's okay.
Right.
Thanks, Mark.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't make reference to you. I cut it out.
Thank you, Malcolm. Okay, next on our list is Dr. Jane Shearer online.
Right, thank you very much for your time. I'll try and be brief. So my main concern is that the policy as it stands is unenforceable. I understand why you've come up with it, given the challenges of the Motor Vehicle Camping Association, but I believe in practice it's going to lead to disappointed expectations and it will lead to conflict. I'm particularly referring to the yellow roads that are indicated where people can pull off 5 meters from the road onto a hard stand. So by telling people that on those roads they are allowed to pull off with those restrictions, you're implying to the readers that they will be able to do this. In Gibbston, I'm a resident of Gibbston. What I know is that there are about 3 pull-offs on the roads that are indicated. This is separate from the designated parking spots. So there'll be a total of 3 potential pull-offs. People will be arriving late. We see at the dock side on the Bungee Bridge, lots of people arriving 9, 10, 11 p.m. to midnight. They're not going to go and look for other places. Those few spots will fill up fast. And there will be very few other places, so they will simply park on the roadway, which is not what the policy intends. There will be 2 people policing this policy between Gibbston and Glenorchy, so obviously they won't be coming out too much, and the net result is likely to be residents starting to carry out citizen enforcement, which is going to lead to conflict and not a positive tourism experience. So I'd like to ask you to reconsider from that point of view of how do you create a policy that doesn't lead to disappointed expectations in the tourists. And the other positive suggestion I'd like to offer is, why don't we focus on people camping near to commercial areas where people can spend money? Because isn't one of our major goals here that tourism is adding to the district by adding to the economy? To add to the economy, people need to interact with the economy. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a bit of time. Have we got any questions?
Yeah, just writing down some spots.
I know you made reference in your go first. You made reference to in your submission to urban roads. Are you suggesting that we allow camping on the sides of urban roads?
Yes, I am, because that is what normally happens. Urban roads are designed with parking spaces on them. It's very clearly marked where you cannot park, so it wouldn't require new signage. And in urban areas, people expect there to be people parking. Not to mention, in urban areas, this is where there are amenities that people can use and pay for.
And how would you then deal though with, say, the issues that we've had in Queenstown this year? We had to specifically exclude parking in 1 or 2 streets in Queenstown because it's becoming a major issue. Do you have any ideas for how that would be dealt with?
No, I don't. I mean, I absolutely see your problem, but if you're going to direct people to park somewhere, wouldn't you direct them to park where we normally expect cars to park?
Good point. Yeah. You have a question, Cody?
No, I don't know, I've got something passing up. Do you have anything like this?
Yeah, could you speak a little bit about how you see that balance between that environmental and the access? So you're talking about, you know, just sort of late arrivals and pulling in and places where there's not space to pull in. Yeah, how do you see the balance between the requirement to give the access and protecting these spaces? Where would you put the weighting on that?
Well, I totally recognize the problem that you guys have. In terms of, if you create a policy that says you must pull 5 meters off the road and onto a hard stand, you're creating a nonsense if actually how you direct people is they cannot achieve what you propose. So at that point, once you have a mass of people ignoring your policy, we all know how fast information travels on social media. So the attitude of the parkers will simply be, well, everybody else is doing this. We're all parking on the sides of the road. There is no balance to be achieved. People will simply park on the sides of the road that you have designated as yellow roads, where theoretically they can park.
Good.
Thank you.
Our 5 minutes line up. Thank you very much for your submission.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, got a couple of cancellations, but Tony McCulkin is in the room. If you're prepared to go a few minutes earlier than your scheduled time,
Sure.
we'll have you now. Thank you very much. 5 minutes, all yours. Actually, from when you start.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony McQuilkin. I own property on Crown Terrace and have lived there for 25 years. I live on Glencoe Road, where I maintain the road verge adjacent to my own land holdings. Glencoe Road is a pristine road with historic stone walls and is also popular with walkers, cyclists, as well as regular road users. Further to my written submissions, I oppose the proposal to permit restricted freedom camping on designated rural roads. I further note that the designation of the rural roads was largely a desktop mapping exercise by Tonkin Taylor without expert local knowledge. I've got 4 concerns. One, the first is that freedom camping will initially concentrate on what I refer to as nodes. And throw those around. There's some pictures there of where I've taken various roads and physically marked where nodes are. These nodes are typically things like lookouts, lay-bys, and areas used for road maintenance. Typically, these nodes would meet the 5 metre separation from the road margin and gravel surface requirement. So you'll see on the plans or the maps, I've delineated nodes where I think freedom campers trying to comply with the regulations will initially focus. My second concern is that because QLDC will be unable to police the proposed rural roads, and by creep, I believe corridors of freedom campers on roadsides will eventuate. i.e. there could be lines of freedom campers on road verges of these rural roads. A third concern is that freedom campers are a nuisance and irritant. They pollute and their presence denigrates the rural environment. This is at the expense of other road users and neighbouring landowners. My fourth concern is that visitors and residents in the Queenstown Lakes District region are only going to increase over time. And it is important to protect now the visual amenity of our roads without a proliferation of freedom campers. I would request councillors and those reviewing these proposals of freedom camping regulations to 1, scrap the proposed freedom camping on rural roads entirely in the Queenstown Lakes District regions, and if not entirely, specifically delete reference to rural roads on the Crown Range Highway from the base of the zigzags to Cadrona, Glencoe Road and Tobin's Track, which are the areas of prime concern to me. I'd also note that freedom campers are better directed to managed camping grounds and paying for the services provided. Finally, I appreciate the legal complexity in setting these freedom camping bylaws and trust that you'll take cognizance of my submission. And thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you. We've got 50 seconds left. If anyone's got a question?
I just want to say thank you for providing visuals, because it's always very helpful amongst the pages of written submissions. So it's very helpful to have your knowledge around some of these places. I'll have to go back on the way home and stop off.
Right. Do you, just out of interest, has there been much of an issue with freedom camping so far to date on Glencoe Road and Tobin's Track? As examples?
Not much.
No.
Occasionally, but you certainly see on State Highway 89 at the Saddle, proliferation of campers there. Again, at places like the Lookout, top of Tobin's, at the top of the zigzags. Yes, you get freedom campers there, as you do at the base of the zigzags. So that stuff is there, and it's happening.
Okay, well, that's the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
Right, so next submitter is online. Under about 10 o'clock, are you there, Kenna?
Okay.
Hello, yes, can you hear me or see me?
Oh, hold on a moment. Sorry. So the earlier, just hold on there for a minute, Hannah. The earlier version did have very nice.
Okay, well, we could.
Yeah.
Since we're here.
You're certainly on one of our lists. So can you just hold there for a quick moment, thanks, Hannah, and we'll have go. 5 minutes, it's all yours.
Nā koutou katoa, Tara Donat Whoever, and I'm with Judy Thompson from the Luggett Community Association.
Do you want to come up too, or are you happy to? Okay.
This is my picture. This is not Delhi or Halong Bay. It is glorious Mata'o that we're really concerned about. And this is the image of a freedom camping activity by the Red Bridge Reserve over previous summer. It was about the only image I had without excrement or nudity in it that I could show you. Yeah, Judy and I are here on behalf of the Luggett Community Association. As many of you know, I also work for Sport Otago and have a vested interest in the sport and recreation facilities in this region. And Judy and I are here on behalf of the people of Luggett. As local residents and regular users of the Red Bridge Reserve, we are concerned about the increasing impact of unmanaged freedom camping in this area. We acknowledge the Motor Caravan Association members are not the issue. At the crux of our Luggett freedom camping issue are the small backpacker vans where the degree of certification is questionable.
We understand the Red Bridge is a reserve, but this is our experience and we have concerns that this will escalate in other areas. Prior to the camp being set up, this area was dirty, unhygienic with rubbish and sewage. When it was fenced, the bank in place and the toilets were introduced, there was an improvement in rubbish and toileting. However, over the last 2 years, this has declined. If this area can be better managed and controlled, campus will have to comply. And we've got some recommendations here in our submission. Appoint an overnight manager. There is a resident supervisor at the Luggett Domain Camp, which has lower turnover. Given the significantly higher turnover and activity at Red Bridge, it is logical and necessary to appoint a manager to monitor compliance, assist campers and respond to issues in real time. The ambassador role should be extended as this site is used 12 months of the year. This Sunday morning at 7:30 and -3 degrees, there were 10 vans there. We think that they should reinstall a camera that can monitor compliance, parking numbers and plate recognition for length of stay. To prevent long-term occupation and ensure fair access, we recommend enforcing a maximum stay of 1 to 3 nights. This aligns with responsible camping principles and helps reduce environmental and social strains. Improve the signage, we have that maximum stay duration on it, self-containment requirements, strict prohibition on walking across the bridge, strict prohibition of disposing of waste into the Mata'o, and where the indications of where the nearest dump stations are. This will help educate campers and support enforcement efforts. Toilets, the accepted guideline in the camping and outdoor industry is 1 toilet per 15 to 20 campers for short-term stays. For longer-term or high-use sites, 1 toilet per 10 campers is often recommended. With over 100 campers a night at the Red Bridge Reserve, you can see the toilets are subscribed. We strongly believe another dump station is required, somewhere where water is available and sewage connection perhaps up with transport, and better management of grey and black water is imperative. Protecting our local access, we suggest designating car parks on the top side of the reserve specifically for local residents. This ensures continued access to recreational activities such as disc golf, walking and biking, which are being compromised by overcrowding. This area received funding for a disc golf course for the Luggett community. It is mostly inaccessible in summer due to no car parking and no safe place to leave a bike. We've even had to ask campers to move off disc golf tees where they've been sunbathing naked. Our domain is mostly unusable, with the playground unusable, and our tennis courts were taken away when the new hall was built. We can't risk losing this valuable piece of recreational land as well. We request that QLDC responsible camping ambassadors attend monthly Luggett Community Association meetings to provide updates, gather feedback and build trust with the community. Clearly mark out a limited number of official campsites and enforce strict penalties for camping outside these areas. The NZTA area adjacent to the reserve should be fully fenced off to prevent unauthorised camping and protect infrastructure, and install signage and collaborate with ORC to manage the swimming hole area across the bridge. This area is increasingly used and needs protection from littering and unsafe camping practices such as shaving, gear washing and emptying toilet waste into our waterways. And we'd support a ban on freedom camping on rural roads. Freedom camping poses a significant safety risk and increases the likelihood of littering and human waste pollution. We strongly support a ban on that. And in conclusion, the Red Bridge Reserve is a valued community asset. Graham Taylor and many members of the community held working bees to get this piece of land into a usable state. And as ratepayers, with limited access to recreational facilities, we should have priority for use and believe visitors need to be educated to environmentally respect this piece of land. Without stronger management and enforcement, its accessibility, safety and environmental integrity are at risk. We urge QLDC to adopt these recommendations to ensure responsible camping and protect our shared spaces. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Just very quickly, I think we might be just on time. That domain, like you mentioned, do people pay to stay there or not?
Yes, they do.
And that's paid for the supervisor, is it as well?
Yes. Right. And we can't use the domain basically.
All right.
So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Right, now back to you, Hannah. It's your turn now. You've got 5 minutes to go through it.
Hello, can you all hear me there?
Yes.
Hi, sorry. Thank you for your time. I'm new to speaking at submission hearings, haven't done it before, but we feel this one's important to us. So here we are. I'm building on, so I'm talking about Meads Road at the top of Lake Hawea, building on from Rosie. This proposed bylaw poses a serious risk to public safety, but farming operations here. We use Meads Road daily, all day, different hours of the day, to move stock, shift large machinery, carry out essential farming operations. As has been spoken about, you actually on Meads Road can't park 5 metres off Meads Road on a gravelled or a metalled surface. It comes into the paddocks in most areas. So having campers parked in lay-bys and gateways, which is probably the only areas that they could, is very disruptive. It's dangerous, and it's probably only a matter of time before someone would be injured or something would be damaged, and we would wonder where that liability falls upon. So we've already seen this in part. So about 2 years ago, a group of freedom campers stayed in the Neck area, and most of you will be familiar with the Neck. It's an amalgamation of different bits of land in there, but there were 200 of them, so it was spread through social media by one person who wanted to have a party. They had a DJ, they had about 200 campers, and in the morning when we came back there, or when we came there, it was absolutely disgusting. We suggested that they pick up their rubbish, and they picked up most of their rubbish, which took them a couple of hours, but the defecation, like the feces everywhere, was disgusting. There was it was all through the bushes, all around on the grass, toilet paper everywhere. And this is where people come to launch their boats, and this is where we come to move our stock through. So sheep are walking through this, and dogs. It was disgusting. I have photos to back that up, but I didn't really want to pin those off. Oh, don't need that. And many paddocks aren't fenced here, so the roadway's not fenced off. So we could imagine the campers going through the paddocks, down the riverbeds. We have also had first-hand experience of freedom campers. We've had them as woofers here in the past, and then they've gone off freedom camping, and they had to give a bottle of booze to somebody to get a blue sticker. So we know that they've only borrowed a toilet to get the blue sticker and then pass that on, or there's a bit of that kind of thing going on. And also we think it's worth remembering that Kids Bush campsite was set up decades ago for this exact reason. I know Taff Cochrane at the time set aside some land to set up Kids Bush because of the campers that were going along the road, and it was recognised back then by bodies around here like the council and LINZ that was not working. So then DOC took over Kids Bush campground to alleviate that as an issue, and it originally had proper facilities, and it was wonderful, and I hear that those facilities are being redone now, which is great, and we feel like freedom campers would be better off to be directed there. It's not a huge cost to stay there for the night, and then like you say, there's water and there's toilets and bits and pieces that they can all use there, and it actually we don't really want to recreate the same issue that we have had in the past. And we urge the council to reconsider the rural roads for farming. For freedom camping needs to be directed to properly serviced campgrounds like Kids Bush, or the restoration of Boundary Creek campground over in Makaroa. We know that was a popular one. We talk to a lot of the campers. There are a lot of people who come up here and ask questions about where they can stay and what they do. And we direct them to Kids Bush and to different places, but Boundary Creek has been closed. But that might be one for the future as well. And that is about as much as I've got for now. Thank you very much for hearing me, and good luck. We know you need to come to a solution for something.
Thank you, Anna. Got any questions at all for Anna?
No, I appreciate the insight, and I know, the old bush stuff and the chaos that it can create in its aftermath. So sympathy for the points, and appreciate your understanding around what we're coming to, but I feel like there's been some good ideas and points to be raised, so well noted.
Yeah, thanks for the background on the Kids Bush campsite as well. I've stayed there, actually.
It's a great campground. It's wonderful. And if you ever come up further, you can book in and go up the valley further and stay in some huts and do some four-wheel driving. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right, next, we've got our next speaker online too, haven't we? Mandy Bell. You hear Mandy?
Yes, coming on here. Good
Very
morning.
You've got 5 minutes, over to you.
Great, thank you. My name's Mandy Bell. I'm a business owner, company and agribusiness leader. I live here at Criffle Station, which runs from opposite the Wanaka Airport to the Criffle Range. There's 3 kilometres of Mount Barker Road affected by these proposed laws. I've lived at Criffle for 30 years and previously 30 years as a holiday maker, which ages me at 60 years. So significant connection to this region. And we've seen a lot of things in our time. I oppose, and those of us that live here at Criffle oppose in its entirety the proposed freedom camping bylaw. I thought it would be helpful just to list some of the experiences, in particular, prior to the setup of the Red Bridge free camping zone, which is locals and ratepayers. We don't understand why we should be paying for the services that are provided down at that zone. However, that zone did improve significantly what happens here on Mount Barker Road for the months, in particular through the summer months. We would have campers down our road every night. And these were the experiences that we had on numerous occasions. Rubbish left that we would have to tidy up and dispose of, in particular bottles in front of the driveway into our homes and the houses and the into the farm, human waste. And also strongly note the requirement to have a loo on board was often met, but they're not used. On occasion when there has been shit and loo paper outside our farm gates or our cottage gates, we would knock on the door and say, look, you're not allowed to do that and you need to have a loo. And they say, but we have got a loo. And I say, can you please show us? And they'd have to lift off a whole lot of clothing. Often it was tucked under a bench seat. So those loos are often not used. They'll be parking on the gravel by mailboxes, so we can't access on driving alongside, parked in front of farm gates that we need to be clear for day-to-day activities because this is where the gravel is. Parked on the road, impeding stock movements when we're needing to shift stock down the road and essential farm services. They'll also climb fences. And I just note again, these are all experiences that we've had over a number of years. Climb fences, for example, for better photos into stock paddocks where we have got stags, for example, during the roar. They're also unhelpful when asked to move due to farm operations. They're not particularly interested in understanding that there are local needs, and fire risk is very real. We have long grass next to where they are often parked, and there's a lower understanding of risks of the fire risks, in particular by visitors. What often also happened was specific sites were frequented because they would post on social media. For example, one particular farm entranceway that had pine trees and there was some shade. Every night through the summer, there are freedom campers that will be parked up there. Noting specifically, there is also conflict of the proposed bylaws. Our farm and home entrances all have gravel, and the bylaw suggests that they need to park on formed gravel, and these are the only gravel parts down the whole length of the road, so they are directly connected to our farming operations. And also note specifically the impracticalness of how to verify and police this, not staying more than 2 nights within any 30-day period and not return to any location within 500 metres of a location where the person has previously freedom camped. How on earth is this going to be policed? So just in summary, impractical, unsafe, unhealthy, and these people need to be paying and go and stay in the provided camping grounds where they can be properly living and being part of our community. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mandy. Have any questions?
Just that, Cripple Station will be next to the state highway, which I know is not subject to the bylaw, is that correct? Yeah, so there was some, but your points are well noted and will definitely be considered. I've written a lot from your submission, so thank you for coming and speaking today.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. Right. Next on the list is Ian Neal in person. Yep. Very good, thanks, Ian. Floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning. Firstly, in the interest of full disclosure, I do Freedom Camp and I am a member of the Motor Caravan Association. I'm not in favour of the association's legal action regarding council's last freedom camping bylaw. I regarded the bylaw appropriate given the intensity of tourism in our district. I also didn't agree with the association lobbying to direct self-containment toilet regulations. The relaxation of those regulations significantly complicates council's ability to draft a new bylaw that satisfies both the needs of residents and visitors alike. While I do, notwithstanding some of the comments from Hannah and others, sort of support the bylaw's approach for freedom camping on rural roads with restrictions, I question why council has elected to allow freedom camping within town boundaries. My research indicates that the 2011 Freedom Camping Act does not actually require freedom camping within town boundaries. So I ask, why allow it within town boundaries? And certainly council should not allow it adjacent to private homes. Over the summer of 24-25, QLDC conducted research on campers' behaviours. Researchers surveyed 383 campers, 317 of which said they were in a self-contained vehicle, yet alarmingly 67% indicated they don't use the onboard toilet facilities. This trend, together with the fact that recent changes in the self-containment regulations that simply requires a toilet to be fixed to the vehicle and not within a separately contained toilet bathroom area, will perpetuate the trend for campers to urinate and defecate in areas adjacent to freedom camping areas. Not something we want anywhere, and certainly not something we want in town boundaries close to people's homes. Several of the areas recommended for freedom camping in Wanaka will create congestion, environmental, health and safety issues. I imagine many of the other proposed areas come with similar complications. Wanaka's Allenby Place and Beacon Point car parks are already heavily used for recreational activities. The proposed bylaw requiring campers to move on by 7 AM is impractical. Few, if any, will comply, and enforcement will be all but impossible. This will result in unnecessary limitation on parking for other users. While the toilet facilities adjacent to some of the proposed areas for camping may alleviate some of the issues, these facilities will in turn create other issues. Facilities like those in the Allenby Place car park will lead to campers using the hand basins for personal bathing, dishwashing and laundry, all things we unfortunately see every day in Wanaka. Additionally, the proposed Allenby Park car park freedom camping is next to the Mount Iron high fire risk zone. Use of this car park for freedom camping will increase the already high fire risk of Mount Iron, and the car park is next to highly flammable Panuka that lies within the Mount Iron Reserve. While the proposed area for freedom camping, Camp Hill Road, is outside town boundaries, it too has its issues. The lack of stringent self-containment regulations combined with no facilities in the area will lead to pollution, with its accompanying health and environmental risks rising. While not an argument for disallowing freedom camping under the 2011 Act, allowing freedom camping adjacent to homes in the Beacon Point Allenby Place car parks, for example, will undoubtedly impact property values. So why subject owners to that issue? The use of reserve land at the Red Bridge outside of Wanaka has somewhat successfully managed the demand for freedom camping near the Wanaka Township, concentrating campers, making it easier to manage campers' behaviour and distancing camping from residents and the busyness of the town. I understand from council staff that due to the additional complexity of allowing freedom camping on reserve land, council did not want to use reserve land to accommodate freedom camping demand. This is a mistake. There must be reserve land that could be used together with council supplied toilet amenities that are close to both Wanaka and Queenstown, yet outside the town boundaries, that could build on the success of the Red Bridge arrangements. Using this land in conjunction with camping on rural roads, conducted in accordance with the new bylaw, would be more in keeping with the mindset of residents in the Lake District than allowing camping within the towns. Freedom camping regrettably comes with behaviours that are on display to all of our residents and tourists alike. Visitors come to view our scenic beauty. They don't want to see small vans that will unfortunately still comply with self-containment regulations spilling out over the pavement with their laundry hanging in the breeze. In short, I feel the new bylaw has not taken into consideration the context and environment in which it will operate. Given our district will continue to be visited by a large number of compliant vans inadequately equipped for convenient self-contained living, we must stop freedom camping within our town boundaries and find a cost-effective way of managing both the environmental and reputational impact on our tourism economy. Failure to do so will result in a segment of our visitor population looking more like squatters than campers, squatters that are in view to us all. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Good time.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you very much. No time for questions, please.
Yeah.
Right, no time for questions.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Although we do have a buffer slot now, don't we? Right. That's right. So we've got a little pause, so we'll adjourn to 20 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. I will get back into it. It's 5 minutes past 10. Everyone? Hello.
Later, mate.
We'll go back into it now. It's 5 minutes past 10. So next we've got Brent. Brent, you've got 2 slots. One for yourself.
Give me 10 minutes.
Done. One for yourself.
Yeah, if it's okay, I might have to combine everything in one and then hopefully a bit of time for a few questions if sure. Sure. Hey, well, thanks a lot for your time, and it's been interesting actually just listening for the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes of some of the other views and bits and pieces. I put in a personal submission for Elephants Investments, which is a company that owns probably halfway up into Skippers. And I'm also actually presenting on behalf of Montreal Trustees 2024. They are the owners of Barn Pitch Farm and one which you'll be familiar with. So it joins Ruby Island Road. Probably one of the key points of my answer, I'm not opposed to freedom camping. I think there's a place for it, and I think legislatively, you're directed that there has to be a place for it. So you've got to make this work in some form or another. Being blunt, I think very remotely close from a legislative perspective. You've got quite clear controls about what you can and can't look at in terms of the bylaw, and I appreciate that you are constrained. There's a lot of amenity concern that people have raised, and unfortunately, that's almost like a side issue as to where the act sits. So those where I guess my disappointment comes in is a lot around the traffic safety and the concerns about what areas should be open, what areas shouldn't be. Skippers Road's a great example. I've been involved in environmental processes on that. There's traffic assessments there about safety, there's hazards. It should be prohibited. Branches Road, it's just putting on a plan and prohibiting it takes away the risk factor of someone driving a caravan up there and being unaware. And that's actually quite a common thing amongst all the rural roads, is that we've got setback perimeters and controls, but unless you're aware of those controls, what's going to actually deter someone from actually going and using these roads and breaching the conditions? I think it's an unfair burden to put on ratepayers and even the council in terms of having to enforce this bylaw. So you've got to look at the tool of prohibition actually being a more effective than having a rule framework to allow for it. Do the work. My suggestion is that you put this process on hold, get some more technical information on the traffic hazards around some of these certain roads. Wanaka Mount Aspiring Road, Melligans Road, Coronet Beach Station Road, which is on the corner of my property, it's a cracker. That's we already have freedom camping problems down there. But you've got your farm trucks, you've got your tractors, you've got the trail users, you've got the cycle users. It's a congested road on a small space, but you arguably could squeeze in freedom camping under those controls. So this is all the stuff that needs to be looked at. One of the things I did put in my submission as well, and I think it's a big risk for the council, is the legalities of this. When you look at the what you can do under this act in terms of the bylaw, you've got essentially three options. One is to basically prohibit or restrict activities via bylaw. I can't remember what the second point was. It wasn't overly relevant. Or the third point was restricted via other legislation. You've already got that, the district plan zoned roads. So just get some advice on this. I think it's a very, very critical point to look at. You can't have accommodation on legal roads in this district without getting a resource consent. So under the Freedom Camping Act, you've already got a legislative prohibition or restriction on freedom camping. So for the council to actually make this whole bylaw work, you actually got to get a resource consent for those areas that you're enabling. So you've got a big, big legality problem with that, and I'm surprised it's got this far without that being canvassed. My submission that I put in, I think, was 2 hours late, and I appreciate that it was received because I was overseas at the time. But there is no mention of Skippers Road. There's no mention of the legality issue I raised. Just press pause on this. That's my suggestion, and just don't rush it. If you spend an extra 2-3 weeks deliberating on this and getting some more information, I think everyone's going to benefit from that. Then you're going to minimize your risk of JRs again. You don't want to end up in that same spot. So that's essentially my suggestion. If there's any questions you have around those points, happy to chat if I've got any time left.
You still got time in your first 5 minutes. Okay. So, have you covered the both?
Yeah, the issue is essentially the same.
Right. Okay. Any questions?
Have you gone through the Tonkin Taylor report, and there's reference to the 70k plus in terms of the danger zone for roads and other sorts of traffic things? What is insufficient in that report that you think could be added when it comes to traffic hazards?
Yeah, that recommendation is good because it's anything over 70k is the same as a problem. But when you look at the bylaw, they haven't prohibited rural roads over 70k.
Right.
So if you look in your mapping, you've got all the lines showing all the areas of the district prohibit them.
Yeah,
that's a really easy fix, and technical report says that, but the actual bylaw doesn't actually go that far and use that as a solution. There's comments in that technical report that we didn't have the time or resources to look at every road, but when you actually stand back and look at some of the perimeters that are already set, they can actually cancel out probably let's say 40-50% of those roads which are problematic from the outset, which helps fix the problem.
That's helpful context. Thank you. That's all from me.
Lisa?
No, thank you. It's very helpful context to have that.
You say, I've just got a quick one. So you mentioned in your submission the area around Milligan's Road and Coronet Peak Station Road. Did you say you do get a bit of freedom camping there, or you have over this last summer?
Yeah, Coronet Peak Station Road, obviously there's bike trails, so it's a great amenity from that perspective. Right on the corner of Milligan's Road and Coronet Peak Station Road, you actually have quite a large area of road reserve which would fall within the exemptions essentially to have freedom camping. It's a dangerous intersection. It's just one of those things that I just don't think it's a safe spot for it. And as Cody pointed out, it wouldn't actually meet that guideline for safety anyway. If you're dealing with 100k roads, I think you're best to err on the side of caution. It doesn't get over the hump that we've got a resource consent requirement anyway. So if the council said, oh, hey, here's our 30 spots in the district that we're going to say yes for freedom camping and goes forward with some resource consent, probably a lot of them would fail under that consenting hurdle with the safety aspect anyway. So it's a circular problem.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are a few minutes early, but Graham's going online. Oh, Graham, there you are. You are online. If you're prepared to go a few minutes early, we're ready for you now.
Fantastic. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm here to talk on behalf of the Mungawera catchment, which is a valley that comes off the state highway and feels a bit concerned about the camper van situation. Sort of two parts to it, really. One is the Camp Hill car park, which is already, in our view, very busy and doesn't really have any potential for compromise with camper vans. It's used by kayakers, swimmers, bikers, walkers. It's right in the middle of the Upper Clutha Tracks Trust track that links Hawea to Albertown. And just someone who uses it a lot, it's often that car park is just very busy. Unless it's extended or something is done, having people stay there overnight would be, in our view, a real issue. To talk quickly about the Mangawera Valley, it's a dead-end valley. It's about 8 k's long, starts off the state highway, and would, at first glance, be an obvious place, I think, for people to think it would be a good place to go and park up. The valley's got about 20 dwellings in it, mainly farmhouses. There's nowhere along the valley that you could comply with a bylaw about being 5 metres off the edge of the road and on gravel or tar seal, perhaps except on someone's driveway or on someone's farm track. And that's just a physical aspect of the road on the Mangawera Valley. It's a farming valley, so there is concern about farming practices being compromised with biosecurity and just people being able to shift stock and do stuff that they do on farms. I take it you've seen the written submission that we've done.
Yes.
Yeah, I really don't have much more to add than that.
Okay. Have you got any questions, Cody or Lisa?
Yeah, but I'm just sort of, it goes across a lot of the submissions, this fair access with other user groups that you mentioned.
Yes.
And one of my questions that will go back to officers is that the bylaw talks about having enough room for any other user or any other person. These areas where you're saying this recreational load, how many, can you give me, I don't know the area, can you give me an understanding of sort of how many other users there are? Are we talking single unit numbers, in the tens? What kind of capacity are these places dealing with of other users than campers?
Well, it's a busy bike track. It's a core commuter route between Hawea and Albertown, so it's sort of busy in that nature. And during the weekend, especially, or on a nice day, it's full of bikers and walkers. It's got a really amazing wave that was set up for kayakers, and they have a lot of competitions there. And when they have competitions, there's people from far and wide with their kayaks, and the place is just chocker. And yeah, and for me personally, it's the closest place we can go for a swim. It's 4 k's away from my house, and if I want to swim in a river or in the lake, that's the closest place to be. And it's a state highway. If you're not in the car park, you're going to be parking along the edge of that, and that's going to compromise safety and things because there were always kids. It's a really beautiful spot. I can see why it'd be really attractive for a camper van to want to go and park there. But as I say, without some major extensions, I can't see how it can be accommodated.
Right, so your concern is that it wouldn't provide that fair access across the different user groups?
I think every place has got to be seen on its merits, and just this particular car park is pretty special.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for participating, Grant. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. Ta.
Okay. So yes, next is Erin Burko from Real NZ, I think. Is she online? Oh yes, up here. Right. Erin.
Good morning.
How are you? We're probably a couple of minutes early, but if you're ready to go, that'll be good.
Perfect.
5 minutes.
Thank you very much. No, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to our submissions. The part of land that we have submitted on is over at the Walter Peak, just in front of the wharf. So the area proposed to be designated restricted comes down the road, and then it ends just in front of the marginal strip, the dock marginal strip, just before you reach the wharf. And so we have reviewed the proposed bylaw, and in our view, we think that that particular area would be better categorised as prohibited. And the main reason for that is just sort of around safety concerns for both campers and for our guests and staff. The width of the road it's not a terribly wide road, it is gravel road. They often have sort of heavy vehicles going along the road, so RD Petroleum, those types of things. There aren't really any places that we could identify where people could camp safely in compliance with the restrictions in the bylaw. So we felt it might create a bit of a hazard by including the map and campers believing that there would be appropriate places for them to camp in compliance with the bylaw. The other concern is around safety for our staff and our guests. As I mentioned, the road is not down the end of it anyway, nearest to the wharf. It's not sort of a formed road that is sort of clearly identified as a road. During the day, we have sort of 250 to 500 guests who cross that road frequently. We have businesses, we have the Colonel's Homestead on one side, and we have a woolshed and farm experience on the other side. So people are frequently crossing the road. And that can and sometimes be up to sort of 10 p.m. at night with our last excursions. We also have staff living over there, sort of to this, quite a bit off the road, but generally it is more akin to, sorry, a small urban area than a rural road. And then the other point we wanted to sort of just draw your attention to is that down the lower part, closest to the wharf, it's also a hazard zone. So our staff accommodation is well clear of that. And whenever we're planning anything over there, we're always quite careful to consider that hazard zone as well. And then the final point we just wanted to draw your attention to would be the difficulty in enforcing the proposed restrictions, given that it's not the easiest place to get to apart from by water. So we just felt it would be a lot clearer for people if that was a prohibited area as opposed to a restricted area. Did you have any questions?
Good, I've got a couple, but have you got any?
No, thanks again.
Thanks for your submission. One of my questions was, it is quite a long hike around here by road. So is there much of an issue with freedom camping there currently?
I don't think there's much of an issue with freedom camping, but we do quite often have people arriving and you can't actually turn around at the end without driving across our private property, which we allow, but it does just create an extra hazard and risk for staff and guests and actually the campers as well, or the drivers, sorry.
And so my next question was the section of road that you've mentioned. Does it have any spaces where it would meet the conditions, the restrictions of being wide enough of an area 5 metres away from the edge of the road carriageway is formed?
Yes, the only areas that we could really identify would possibly be in gateways, which would probably create another safety risk in itself.
And then my last question was, as I understand it, I haven't seen it personally in the south or been there, but there's a dock campsite at the end of the side of the bay, isn't there, on that little peninsula?
Yes, correct. You can't drive directly to the dock campsite, but you can park and then walk down to the dock campsite.
Yeah, that's my question. Then, so the next question was, do many people use that campsite and arrive by road?
I don't actually have the numbers of people who use the campsite. It is a beautiful campsite, so I definitely recommend you go and visit it. But I can find out the information and come back to you on that one.
Yeah, but I guess if you, as you say, you can't drive to it, that limits it to people that have bought a tent and can carry it from their car.
Correct.
Yeah. Very good. No more questions from me.
No, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you for the submission.
Thank you very much.
Next, Kim Fogelberg is online. Kim, if you're ready to go, you've got 5 minutes.
Kia ora. I'm Kim Fogelberg and I live in Hawea. I've been here for over 20 years and I'm going to speak on one subject today, which is freedom camping in rural roads. I understand the council must comply with the Freedom Camping Act which allows freedom camping on council land unless controlled by bylaws. And I do respect the council's efforts to balance tourism with protecting local amenity values. I do not believe rural roads should be used to accommodate campers in the QLD. The draft bylaw applies different conditions for different areas, which could be easily misinterpreted, and this just creates unnecessary pressure on the local community, who often end up policing compliance, and on campers trying to find appropriate locations. Clearly, designated camping areas are the only way to provide certainty and avoid conflict. My feedback is focused on the Hawea Basin where I live, and I know the road network. I hope I can provide brief insight to understand why freedom camping would not work in our small network of rural roads. And I suspect my observations reflect many other areas in the QLD. Hawea has a growing population of busy working families who enjoy being connected to rural surroundings. Roads linking communities at the lake to the south side of the basin, such as Cane Road, Domain Road, Gladstone Road, Cemetery Road, Camp Hill Road, Newcastle Road, are all relatively busy community links. They're not quiet backcountry roads. These roads are inappropriate for freedom camping. From a camper's perspective, there's constant traffic, cars and bikes passing, and that would be unpleasant. For residents, camper vans residing on those roads would undermine amenity values and the rural character. Other roads marked on the GIS mapping, which just seem weird. McCarthy Road is a long, straight working farm road with one-way access straight up to farm homesteads, and there's no suitable camping spots along that road. Watkins Road is a straight access road to Devon Dairies Farm and a couple of lifestyle blocks. Absolutely inappropriate for freedom camping because there's milk tankers barreling down that road. Lois Lane is an incredibly steep and narrow entrance onto a terraced area of lifestyle blocks. There's nowhere to camp along that road, and campers exploring this area in search for a spot are likely to cause additional maintenance costs for that road. The draft bylaw requires vehicles to be at least 5 metres from the road edge and parked on gravel or sealed surfaces. Over the weekend, I drove almost all Hawea Basin roads marked restricted on the GIS maps, looking for potential camping areas which could meet these two criteria. I found no camp spots. At best, as other people have mentioned, I cited farm or residential entrances, which could appear to comply, but these are just completely inappropriate. So this raises the question, why are these roads listed as restricted areas when there's no compliant camping sites on them? It just appears selections were made by mapping rather than ground checks. All roads without genuine compliant camping areas should be classified as prohibited. This would avoid confusion, wasted effort by the community and policing, and wasting time for campers searching for sites that do not exist. Thanks for hearing me.
Very much.
Thanks, Kim.
Questions?
Not that I guess sort of highlighted for me in the domain, there is like an old tennis court that's technically sealed that might technically be 5 meters away. Your point is well canvassed in a lot of the submissions around the confusion on rural roads. So hopefully we'll see clarification for you on your behalf. So thank you for speaking today.
Thank you. Thanks for your submission, and I noted the point about milk tankers as well. But did you say there's a road called Lois Lane?
Yes, Lois Lane.
Right, interesting.
Great. Yeah.
A quick question. You talk about people hunting around for appropriate sites, and I'm aware that we do have to be a little cognizant of our kilometres over the whole roading network, sending people round and round. Do you see people? What is their experience of a lot of people looking for sites?
There's actually and there's confusion because there are already campers parking along places like Domain Road, and people don't know whether they're allowed to or not. It's just completely confusing at the moment, and most people are quite negative about it. In fact, everybody is. They drive down Domain Road to visit us. We're at the back of the basin. So there were some camper vans parked down there. Are they allowed to be there? They're just doing it at the moment. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of confusion.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much. Right, next is
Thank you.
Kirsten.
Hi.
Kirsten, you're on, I can see there, yeah, go for it, you've got 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Roy. I'm from a local farming family and currently living in Albertown. I recently spent 18 months over a 4-year period travelling New Zealand in our self-contained caravan with my husband and 2 children. And we stayed in an extensive network of freedom and low-cost camping spots. So I have a foot in both courts, a concerned local and a passionate camper. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I grew up witnessing the ignorance in the wake of litter and human faeces left behind by freedom campers. I then worked in the local tourism space for 20 years and found that many of these people were jumping out of planes and off bridges, spending a lot of money in our region, just not on accommodation. Fast forward to our family caravan adventures, and we met a whole other level of responsible self-contained campers. The respected retired couples, the families travelling slowly, and the professional nomads. What I've learned is that majority of freedom camping issues aren't caused by those who are certified self-contained. Majority don't want to annoy anyone. They just want a safe, free or cheap place to camp. And often it's travellers' interpretation of vague rules that leads to them parking in dangerous situations, like in the cattle yard gateway, or having unpleasant exchanges with frustrated locals. I think there are 3 key elements for successful freedom camping in our region. Firstly, the freedom camping areas need to be clearly defined. Please don't allow freedom camping on our entire rural roading network. It is unrealistic to think that the council can monitor such a huge area, let alone the safety issues these roads pose when parking after dark. Traveller interpretation of the proposed rules will vary to local expectations, creating dangerous parking scenarios and frustrated landowners, farmers and the public. Can council please consider researching into specific freedom sites on these rural roads and consulting with local neighbouring landowners during the process? Please don't allow freedom camping near residential areas. For example, the Allenby Place parking right beside houses in the popular Mount Iron car park. As an alternative, why not consider the recently made camper van only parks in front of the showgrounds on the waterfront? These parks are away from residents, they're accessible, they've got toilets, rubbish bins, and they can be easily monitored. Please don't use existing high-use car parks for multi-day stays, such as the Camp Hill Road Park by the Hawe River. If you need to use this site, can we consider creating another adjacent car park that is specifically for freedom camping? Otherwise, there'll be ongoing conflict with the local day users. The rec centre, that seems like a great spot, but please consider allowing 2 standard car parks per freedom site to allow space for opening doors and reducing the fire hazard. So 36 parks total, 36 standard car parks total for the 18 proposed sites. It would be great to create another area similar to the Red Bridge Freedom site. Maybe the land adjacent to the current Albertown camping grounds could be considered. And is there an opportunity to reopen the Boundary Creek site on the way out to Makarora? Secondly, we need to have really good signage and strict enforcement with fines instead of having responsible camping advocates educating travellers. Just like a 30-minute car park in town, there would be signs and instant tickets. Word would spread quickly that QLDC had zero tolerance for non-compliance and fake self-containment stickers. On this signage, can we also consider, where applicable, the 4 main issues that cause angst amongst our locals: the litter, fires, contaminating our waterways and temporary clotheslines. All cooking needs to be done inside the vehicle during summer. A barbecue or portable stove on a dry roadside can have dire consequences. No cleaning chemicals in our water bodies, no temporary clotheslines, and instant fines for rubbish and toileting outside of the vehicle. The public and fellow campers need to be able to report non-compliance via videos and photos. Can the existing Snap Send Solve app be used for this and picked up straight away by the enforcement officer who's on duty? And thirdly, let's take the pressure off the freedom camping numbers by having multiple low-cost camping options available. These would be monitored by landowners and groups. NZMCA parks and POPs, which are park over properties, are welcoming and affordable, starting from as low as $5 per adult, and children are often free. When travelling, we often chose these options over freedom camping purely for the added security. They have strict rules. If you don't abide by these, you risk losing your membership. We stayed hundreds of nights in these parks and we never once encountered an issue. Pops can also be a great fundraiser for clubs such as golf, footy and scout dens, receiving money for overnight parking or additional income for local businesses or landowners that have the space. Another option is low-cost community camps, similar to those found in Okarito and Nelson Creek. The community runs the camp and the locals welcome campers as their community directly benefited from us staying there. If the council hasn't already done so, please do speak with other districts that have successful freedom and low-cost camping, such as Southland, Waitaki and South Waikato district councils. There are some wonderful NZMCAs in the Christchurch area, Tekapo and Manapori, and they have experience with setting up the Kiwi Cash user pay systems for toilets and showers that may be of interest to the council. Thank you for your time.
That's a great good time. Thank you very much, and you had a very good submission as well. You've gone into great detail, and it certainly sounds, I don't know how old your children were, but it sounds like they've had a great 9 months travelling around New Zealand and Caribbean.
It was incredible, yeah.
Very good, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next up, we've got Bruce online. Bruce, you're at the moment. If you're ready to go, you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to strongly oppose the expanded freedom camping in our district. I'm a local builder in the area and have been raising my kids, 6 and 4, and really enjoying what the district offers at the moment, specifically the use of Beacon Point. This proposal risks trading our environment, our community, and our reputation for the convenience of a small group of sort of low-value visitors. It's short-sighted, it's unnecessary, and it puts to risk everything that makes this district special. Freedom camping, I've noticed, is not harmless. We've seen the results before. A lot of litter scattered across reserves, human waste in sort of not the correct areas, food scraps attracting pests, and vegetation trampled by vans pulling off on the roadsides. At Beacon's Point, the stakes are even higher. This is not just another paddock or roadside pull-off, it's the edge of Lake Wanaka itself. Once waste seeps into that water, and once the shoreline is compacted and eroded, there's really no easy fix. You can't just clean the lake, and you can't just the way you sweep a street, you know? If we allow freedom camping here, we are inviting irreversible damage to one of the most iconic and fragile environments. It's not really stewardship, and it seems to me like it's just a bit of carelessness. Beacon Point is a community place. My family's learned to swim, my children learned to paddle there. People work their dogs on a daily basis, and locals gather to enjoy the peace. Turning it into a campground, the locals lose it. Their peace is replaced with noise, their parking is replaced with vans, and their sense of ownership is replaced with resentment. And let's be honest, who pays? Not the freedom campers. The cost of cleanup, enforcement, and infrastructure fall on the ratepayers themselves. Those same ratepayers who get pushed out of their own space. It isn't fair for locals to subsidise visitors who contribute little to the economy while carrying the mess and the burden they leave behind. This district markets itself as a premium destination, a premium world-class destination. It's unique and it offers a unique environment. The rows of van parks along the lakefront do not fit the brand, they cheapen it. We risk losing our high-value visitors, the kind that spend a lot of money, stay in the accommodation, dine in the restaurants, and return year after year. And they come here because of the sense of the unspoiled nature. If they arrive at Beacon Point and see a makeshift campground, the image is shattered. Why would we risk our international reputation and our long-term tourism economy and the pride of our community just to cater to the lowest value segment of our visitors? It really doesn't make any sense. I'm not anti-visitor and I'm not anti-camping. I've done a lot myself, and I believe that welcoming people to enjoy the district, but it must be done responsibly. There must be a smarter path forward where we can direct freedom campers to designated car parks away from residential and away from sensitive areas, away from risk areas. We don't want anybody getting hurt either. Main roads and traffic roads, with the risk of these people getting hurt, is very high. We can equip them with toilets, rubbish facilities, and waste disposal, but we need to enforce the compliance strongly so the rules actually mean something. This approach protects the environment, protects the community spaces, and still provides an option for budget travellers. It is not about saying no to camping. It's about saying camping must be done in the right places in the right way. Beacon Point is not just a site on a map. It's taonga. It's a treasure for this community. If we vote to make freedom camping area, you're voting for more waste in the lake and on our shores, more cost on the ratepayers, less access for locals, and a tarnished tourism brand that took decades to build. And we can't affect that. We can't afford to do that. So my message is pretty clear. Beacon Point is not a campground. Protect it, protect our district, say no to this proposal, and focus instead on managed, responsible camping where it belongs. Cheers. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. Any questions? No. Well clarified.
No, very good. Thanks for your submission and taking the time out of your day. Look like you got some jib stop and compound drying behind you there.
As I say, we're busy builder at the moment. Yeah, the town's doing well, and we really are enjoying what, you know, the people that do come and visit and actually land up staying for a very long time. So it's been good. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for the time. Cheers.
Right. So we've got Tim Allen. He was unconfirmed, wasn't he? No Tim Allen in the room or online. And so next is Nicole Malpass. Hi, Nicole, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, yes. Very good. We're a few minutes early, but if you're ready to go, you've got 4 5-minute slots. If you want to use them all, you can use all of them if you need to.
Perfect.
That gives you a total of 20 minutes. There you go.
Lovely, thank you very much. So to begin with, I'd like to speak on behalf of Murray Frost. He's a long-term client of ours, but is unable to make it today. So I said that I would be happy to speak on his behalf to his submission. His submission is in opposition specifically with regards to the Beacon Point restricted freedom camping area designated. And I guess his concerns are over a range of matters, but the main ones are that it's a very intensively utilised recreational area, both for visitors and for people that live there as well. And there's often struggles with regards to access, parking, and recreational opportunities. So people often go down there with boats and rafts because that's the area where the Clutha River comes out of as well. And there's often quite a lot of congestion, and he's concerned over the accessibility of that for these people that wish to freedom camp there. And also he's concerned over the number of spaces that are provided being only 5. Because of the high amenity of this area, in our opinion, when compared with the other locations designated for freedom camping, such as Wanaka Rec Centre, there's a very vast difference in the level of amenity. So it would be very likely that these people that wish to freedom camp would, to begin with, start their search for a site in that particular area because of the high amenity that it affords. So with that, we believe that there could be conflicts. So people may turn up early, they may hang around for spaces, there may be conflicts between freedom campers that are there or have turned up a little bit later and can't get a space. And there'll be multiple people attempting to go down this road, which I'm not sure whether some of you may be familiar with the area, some of you won't be, but it is quite a small access area that isn't formed to a very high standard, and that is a dead end. So you go down there and then you've just got to find a suitable turning location, turn around and go back out. It's not a through road. So there could be instances where it's a busy season where people are trying to go down there, trying to find these camping spots, and then figuring out that actually there isn't any because there's only 5, and then turning around and coming back out. And now in the winter months, being 6 p.m, it's obviously dark, and that could also cause conflict with access. Maybe perhaps the types of vehicles going down there wouldn't necessarily be suitable for a road like that. But also in 6 p.m. in the height of summer, it's still a very intensively utilised area. So people would go down there after work, they would be taking their swim, they'll be walking their dogs, and it's still extremely hot in the summer at 6 p.m. and it's very, very utilized. So if this were to be moving forward, the submitter opposes this as a space to be designated for freedom camping. But if council deemed it ultimately appropriate, 6 p.m. is just a too earlier time, especially in the summer, for these people to be turning up. And then moving on to the proximity of facilities. So there's over 500 meters between these spaces and the closest toilet facilities. And the concern here is around whether or not people would have kind of the desire to walk that far to utilize, or whether or not they would be indeed using their internal facilities to their vehicles, which potentially isn't likely. And then being that it is so close to the lake, a matter of 100 meters or so, then that lake being a very sensitive receptor, it's potentially an inappropriate location for such waste. Moving on to the monitoring side of things, again, if this were to be a location deemed suitable by council, which again the applicant opposes, then we believe that monitoring needs to be something that's very well addressed and more proactive in terms of I was speaking yesterday to someone, and perhaps it should be something that's more actively monitored, such like parking is in the area, as opposed to a reactive approach when there's complaints received or anything like that. So I think that if it is deemed a suitable area, then there needs to be a lot of focus on the monitoring of this moving forward. So that concludes my points for Mr. Frost. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them before I move on to the other submissions.
You can move on. You've used up 1 minute of your second 5-minute slot.
Perfect.
Carry on.
Okay. So my next submissions were written by myself, and I'm going to address on behalf of the Matter Our Investments Limited and Medius Wanaka Limited in one, being that they were almost exactly the same submission. So specifically, these submissions focused on the designated rural roads for freedom camping or restricted freedom camping. So essentially, we believe that due to council generically mapping these areas, there's been a lack of site-specific assessment, which I know is acknowledged in the paperwork. There hasn't been site-specific assessment. And by way of these submissions, we are offering a level, I guess, of site-specific assessment. So for instance of Halliday Road, there isn't accounting for all the conditions that freedom campers would have to abide by. There isn't actually any locations along that roading which can comply with the specific conditions. And if this mapping were to be put out to or made available to freedom campers on QLDC GIS, or however it would be made available, then campers are likely to follow that mapping. And when they go down there, we believe that conflict will arise, being that there are no ability for those locations, or there are no ability for those campers to find compliant locations. And then this could lead to potentially illegal camping in areas that are not designated for it, as well as access constraints. In Halliday Road's instance, you have an intersection into the state highway, which is a high-speed road as well, with relatively limited visibility. And if, again, due to the conditions turning up late at night, there would be potentially more conflicts here. Moving on to Halliday Road itself, it's 100 kilometres an hour road, and noted in the Tonkin and Taylor assessment, this is a hard constraint. It was noting that anything over 70 kilometres an hour would be a hard constraint, and this is 100 kilometres per hour zone. So it is subject to that hard constraint. So essentially, we believe that Halliday Road should be a prohibited road for restricted freedom camping, and it should be taken off the mapping, given that there are no compliant locations and it is subject to that hard constraint. We think that across the board, speaking more generally of rural roads, that site-specific assessment, amending the locations where appropriate, would be the way forward. So you're ensuring there that compliance with the conditions are achievable to avoid any confusion and conflicts with freedom campers. And this may involve targeted site-specific assessments of utilised places. And then once you identify those locations, you can make them known to the public. You can make them you can have signs up, you can perhaps put in more amenities if there's the budget to do so. But as we would like, as a result of these submissions for Halliday Road to be removed and more site-specific assessments moving forward, we are generally supportive of there being restricted freedom camping subject to conditions in appropriate locations. We just believe that the bylaw has fallen short with respect of site-specific assessments undertaken. So moving on to Venator submission. It's somewhat similar to the previous submissions that I've talked about. This particular submitter owns land upon Morris Road, and that's where they gain access from. So again, Morris Road is over 70 kilometres an hour. It's actually an 80 kilometre an hour road. It has a fair amount of topography, so it climbs quite steeply, around kind of 500 metres in or so. And it again doesn't have the ability to comply with the restrictions put forward. As a result of this, the submitter wishes that Morris Road should be prohibited from freedom camping and therefore taken away off the maps that identify it for such. Very similar to the other assessments or the other submissions, we are generally supportive of there being a restricted freedom camping area upon rural roads, but again, having this site-specific assessment for the road is key, and by identifying areas which potentially don't have the ability to comply with these restrictions is going to lead to conflict. I'm aware I haven't taken up very much time, but that's my talking to my submissions closed, and I'm available for questions.
Oh, very good. No, you're well into your third slot, so that's fine. Have you got any questions from the panel?
Sorry, where am I? If you could just choose one change to be made across the whole draft bylaw to achieve these bits, which is your most significant change that you're asking for? Because you touch on quite a lot of the sites here. What I'm hearing is more site-specific assessment, but is there any other comment you'd make on that?
If I had to choose one particular point across obviously I've done various submissions on behalf of clients. If I had to choose one, it would be undertaking site-specific assessments on each of the areas designated.
Thank you.
No, very good. Thank you for your submissions.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you. Right. Silken Lauman. We have Silken Lauman here? No. Okay. We do have a buffer period anyway, and we finished this one a little bit early, so we'll adjourn for till 11:10. We're due. Yeah. Currently, so we'll adjourn for 15 minutes. We'll see if our next presenter arrives on that time. Okay, thank you very much.
PowerPoint.
Good to go. No, that is going to appreciate it.
Right, go for it.
Well, first of all, my name is Silken Lauman, and I am a resident of Wanaka. And in fact, we live on the property, or just moving into the property that's directly adjacent to the Freedom Camping site that's being proposed. We've lived in Wanaka for 3 years. As you all know, it's one of the most gorgeous places in the world. We're Canadian. And I remember the first time we came to Wanaka, I mean, it was just an indescribable feeling to see the mountains and the paths and just the access to recreation and to this, beautiful country that you live in. And we have the pleasure to be welcomed here. So I just wanted to say that. I guess the first thing I would like to say is that we had no idea that this was being proposed until we bumped into a neighbor who did know about it. And since we've been talking to neighbors, most of them have not heard that freedom camping is being proposed in the area. So I wonder if there's something in that process that we still have to address. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. Secondly, not only is Wanaka this incredible place to live, Beacon Point is a gem within that incredible place to live. For those of you who've not seen it, there's this feeling when you go down there, it's so close to the city. It's a 5-minute drive from downtown Wanaka, a 15-minute bike ride only if you're using a pedal bike. And yet you feel like you're really in a natural place, a place you can just unwind. That there's 2 access points to the lake. And then at the end of this fairly narrow road, there is a walking track that's not just used for walking and hiking, but is used to bike all the way around the lake and into Albertown. So it's a heavily used area. When we first came to Wanaka, I would say it was still a bit of a hidden gem. But in the 3 years that I've been here, I really noticed that it's been found. It's been found by tourists, it's been found by, the entire surrounding city. And now it's really feeling the pressure of more and more people coming down there. Because it's the end of, you kind of have to drive towards the residential area at the end of that part of town. And then, you scoot down and it's, like I said, it's this very narrow road. And increasingly, you're seeing families coming down there, paddleboarding, picnicking, using the lake for swimming. And it's not just in the summer, it's really all year round. And like last night, I was sitting in my house, which we haven't officially moved into, and there were people at 7 o'clock walking their dogs, still biking, and this is in the middle of winter, so it's used heavily by residents. I think it's important to talk about how freedom camping affects the residents in the immediate area, but also overall in Wanaka. I already talked a little bit about how it's being used, but how would freedom camping really affect that use? So I'll first describe our situation. Our home and its land are directly in front of the proposed 5 spots.
It's not an exaggeration to say if I walked to the edge of my property and reached out my hand, I would be able to touch the RV or the camper van or whatever that's parked there, right? So, and that's not just in the daytime, that's in the nighttime. And not only is that a feeling of, you know, being intruded upon, it's also a safety concern. You know, when I go out at night to walk the dogs, which I do every night, you know, I'm going to be walking into people I don't know, to camper vans, to, you know, to RVs. And that kind of goes against everything I've ever been taught about keeping myself safe, right? You stay away from parked vehicles. And I wonder how a 20-year-old girl who's running before work is going to feel about running past those camper vans or running after work. So I think that's a concern, and most people are good people, but not everybody. So that would be one concern. The other concern that is very real is like the noise, the light pollution, the access to the lake, and how that affects the quality of the water, potential people dumping gray water, as well as human waste. And that's something that I've seen when I myself have done freedom camping. Is yes, we have these rules, you know, use cassette toilets, you know, in the bigger RVs, you have other kinds of toilets. But in reality, it's a pretty different situation where a lot of people are using the lake with shampoo and soap. They're using the bushes as a place to urinate and even defecate at times. And that's not what we're looking for in a residential area, and really shouldn't be looking for anywhere that freedom camping is being invited. There's no way of patrolling and policing freedom camping at the end of a quiet road in a residential area. And my understanding of freedom camping, it was never intended to be beside playgrounds. It was never intended to be the end of a residential road or a dead end in a residential area. So it seems to go against the actual intention of freedom camping in New Zealand, which is about inviting people into the wild spaces, into the beautiful spaces of this incredible country. There are other places to go directly in Wanaka. There are very affordable campsites. There's Glendew, which you probably heard from Kirsten all about in the last 20 minutes. And there's also people that offer their properties for almost nothing in order to park there. So there are other options for people, which I also think is important to talk about. The actual site that we're talking about, the sites actually run right adjacent to a protected wetland. So when you walk outside of our property and walk outside of the parking where residents are using and parking to access the beach and the trail, right beside of this is absolutely gorgeous wetland. And from my time in New Zealand, it doesn't seem like there's that many wetlands, especially in the South Island. That's pretty important that we protect it. I think as a Canadian, I do have a different perspective. I'm still understanding this country and how it all works and freedom camping. And one thing I would say is that New Zealanders are very resilient and they love their freedom. And like, what's not to love about the idea of freedom camping, right? Like, you can go anywhere in this country and you can just park your vehicle and you can enjoy it. And I think that's something that's really exciting. And for somebody like me who's adventurous, the idea that you can do that's pretty cool. But in reality, when I actually tried freedom camping, what we experienced, maybe I just don't know the system well enough, is a lot of the time, like one time we went and we were parked in a parking lot right beside a restaurant and at the end of a residential area. Another time, we were parked on the side of a lake and we witnessed people getting undressed in public. We witnessed people using the bushes as a place to go to the bathroom. So these are problems that are obviously not new to you about freedom camping. How are we going to police that? What resources are we going to direct in order to properly control this? And I don't think anybody who lives in New Zealand would have imagined that there would be a freedom camping ground, like literally in their backyard, literally adjacent to a playground. I don't think that's what any of you were aiming for. So we're worried about grey water, we're worried about black water. You know, Lake Wanaka is our drinking water in Wanaka, and it deserves to be protected. We're worried about that wetland. And I'm sure you've already heard, it's the community themselves who are doing the native planting and the protection of all of this area. And these are people who are volunteering their time, getting out there every weekend to plant, to water, you know, to restore, to protect the manuka. Do you call them trees here or bushes? You know, which are very important to the area.
30 seconds.
Pardon me?
30 seconds remaining.
Okay. Just back to safety for a minute. So there's the personal safety, and you could argue, well, that's anywhere. But I think the number of people that use the walking track and the cycling track in the evenings is pretty significant. You know, you really can't stand there for more than 5 minutes without seeing bicycles going back and forth and people walking back and forth. Very, very popular area. And Wanaka is increasing at 3 times the rate of the national average in population, right? So you can see how all of these things are really gonna intersect and become a problem. And I guess as a Canadian, I've just seen it happen over and over again, how these things start to intersect, you know, the need to protect the environment, which increasingly has become important in a place where there's a lot of wilderness, like in Canada. You can forget that those protections have to be in place. And you balance that against the needs of the residents and increasing pressure for housing. And then of course, the fact that New Zealand is such a tourist destination. So I've witnessed towns and cities in Canada really being destroyed by lack of discipline in city planning, and not sort of that forward projection of how those rules are going to affect the future of a town and a city. And it's a lot harder to reverse things once, you know, you've sort of unintendedly created an environment that is impactful for the natural environment and for the residents in the city.
We'll need to wrap it up.
Could you speak a little louder?
We need to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you.
Finish the time.
Okay, I guess the last thing I would say is that, again, the idea of freedom camping, I think we all love that word freedom. And I would really ask, freedom for who? Is it freedom for the residents? Is it freedom for people who live, the locals in Wanaka, and enjoy the natural environment and what is there, a very special and protected place? And is it freedom for the environment, which is something I think is incumbent upon all of us as New Zealanders and also residents of New Zealand to protect. So thanks very much.
Thank you. No time, thanks, sorry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then we've got Christine Wilson at the back, yeah. So you're here for yourself, but also on behalf of your, did you say brother-in-law or brother?
What was that, sorry?
You're here for yourself, but you're here with your brother or brother-in-law originally.
Both of us put the submission in together.
So your slots are together. He's obviously not able to.
He's sick, he ended up in Lakes Hospital.
So you have the option of using.
He couldn't come, flew down from Wellington and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the option of using both slots for 5 minutes each. So you have.
Yes.
If you want to use the whole 10 minutes, and your time starts now.
Yes. So kia ora, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Christine Corson. I'm here to strongly object to the draft Freedom Camping Bylaw to 2025. Specifically, the inclusion of Halliday Road as a restricted freedom camping area. While I support the council's intent to manage the impacts of freedom camping and agree with the risk-based conditions in clause 8.3, the current bylaw takes a blanket approach to rural roads without considering whether they can actually comply with those conditions. This is not only impractical, it's inconsistent with section 11.2 of the Freedom Camping Act, which requires targeted evidence-based regulation. Let me be clear, Halliday Road is not suitable for freedom camping. It has a 100 km/h speed limit and a dangerous intersection with State Highway 6, where multiple serious accidents have occurred. The Tonkin-Taylor report clearly states that roads over 70 kilometres per hour pose a high safety risk and should be excluded. Yet Halliday Road remains on the list. The State Highway 6 turnoff to Halliday Road is further complicated by large numbers of tourists turning right to visit the lavender farm, adding congestion and unpredictability to an already hazardous intersection. This increases the risk of collisions, especially involving unfamiliar drivers in large camper vans. There is no legal or safe places to park a camper van on Halliday Road that meet the bylaw's conditions. This creates confusion for visitors and increases the risk of illegal or unsafe camping. Halliday Road also provides access to the Upper Clutha Track, a popular walking and cycling route. The turning circle at the end is not designed for overnight vehicles and is already used for rubbish collection, mail delivery, and recreational parking for users of the walking and cycle track. Freedom camping here would obstruct access and discourage community use. Importantly, the bylaw itself states that freedom camping should only occur in areas that can be controlled and managed to protect health and safety, access, and the environment. In fact, Halliday Road fails to meet 5 of the key conditions listed in clause 8.3. It cannot provide the required 5-metre buffer from the road edge. It lacks formed gravel or sealed surfaces suitable for camper vans. It cannot ensure safe stopping space for other vehicles. It obstructs access to public amenities like the walking track and rubbish collection. And it fails to protect health and safety given the traffic hazards and farming operations. Even the remaining conditions, such as self-containment and waste disposal, are not reliably enforced, as residents have reported frequent non-compliance. And this just isn't my view. All 32 residents of Halliday Road have signed a formal submission opposing its inclusion. These are people who have first-hand experience of the risks and impacts. So I respectfully ask Council to remove Halliday Road from the restricted list to a prohibited road. Let's ensure this bylaw is not only well-intentioned, but also practical, safe, and fair. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not very natural at this.
No, great. That's good. Thank you very much.
Natural.
And what was it?
I said you seemed natural.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm very nervous. Okay. Do you want to ask me anything about the road? I live there.
We have had another submitter talk about Halliday Road. Yes. Also, yeah.
That previous girl, Nicola, was talking
Yeah.
about Halliday Road too.
Yeah.
Like two of the ones she.
She was talking for the farm there.
Yeah, I think it points to an aspect that's been brought up quite frequently in submissions in terms of the practicalities around that rule. So I've said previously that we'll try and provide some clarity to you with our questions, because yes, there's a lot of confusion with that being there in the first place. Yeah.
Yes, especially where the turning circle is, where people most likely try to come. There's not a lot of room. I put a photo in the submission, and it's not managed. It's all uneven. It's never been managed by the council at the end of the road. So it's definitely not suitable. And over the height of summer, you know, you get cars down there trying to park, they bring their bikes on their cars and they want to park their cars there to go on the walking track because they're not allowed to take their car any further.
Yeah.
I've put a photo of that in the submission. And so you get large camper vans down there, it just would create havoc.
I understand. And yeah, like I say, it's a point that's applicable to a lot of areas, so it's something front of mind. But thank you for participating and speaking.
Thank you.
Courageous.
Thank you. Right, it's all of our submitters or presenters today, isn't it? So we will adjourn meeting. Are there any questions firstly that staff need to follow up on before day one hearing adjourns?
We've agreed to sort of put those into give you time to respond.
Yes, submit questions to you to
Email to Karen.
but if there's nothing pressing that you need an answer on right now, then we will adjourn the meeting to recommence tomorrow at 12:30 PM here in the council chambers. I'll hear this meeting closed at 11:28. Thank you.